Hi, everyone here in New Mexico and around the world. I wonder what we will learn about UFOs, UAPs, and ETs from more congressional hearings before the end of this year, 2025. It was only a couple of weeks ago on August 1st that U.S. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer expressed frustration about the challenge to keep congressional hearings going to investigate UFO UAPs. Senator Schumer told Splinter News, quote, "You gotta let people know the truth, whatever it is," close quote. Senator Schumer also reintroduced with his Republican colleague, Senator Mike Rounds, what is called, quote, the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Disclosure Act, close quote, to keep scheduling congressional hearings about the extraterrestrial UAP UFO phenomena and preserving all records about unidentified anomalous phenomena that we have talked about as UFOs and ETs for decades, and that this should be eventually disclosed to the public about the history of the U.S. federal government's knowledge and involvement before important information disappears. Disappearing information was reported a year ago in June of 2024 when ResearchGate.net, a platform for scientific papers, published, quote, the Cryptoterrestrial Hypothesis, a case for scientific openness about a concealed, hidden, earthly explanation for unidentified anomalous phenomena, close quote. It was authored by Harvard University's Professor Tim Lomas and Professor Brendan Case, also of Harvard, plus a third scientist, Professor Michael Paul Masters at Montana Technological University in Butte. Their June 2024 paper published in ResearchGate.net was about extraterrestrial beings that are physically based on and inside Earth now. I was also given that revelation 26 years ago, back in December of 1999, by a Defense Intelligence Agency analyst who told me then about ETs that are based inside Earth. So I paid attention to that Newsweek headline back in June of 2024, quote, aliens may already live on Earth, Harvard researchers say, close quote. And then, only a few days ago, came this August 14th, 2025 UK Globe article by Mike Hammer, quote, Harvard University researchers suggested aliens are already on Earth before their report was removed from the web, close quote. The Globe also reported, quote, mysteriously, the paper authored by Professors Masters, Lomas, and Case was taken down from ResearchGate shortly after its publication in mid-July of 2025, leading some investigators to allege that it is a deliberate cover-up, close quote. This U.S. Air Force pilot agrees there is deliberate U.S. government cover-up of an ET presence on Earth after his own military experiences. He is Gregory Rogers, D.O., Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine for the U.S. Air Force. Dr. Rogers was also a NASA senior flight surgeon and chief in aerospace medicine from 1989 to 1995 in the 45th Space Wing at Patrick Air Base, Force Base in Brevard County, Florida. Dr. Rogers was supported and has supported 31 space shuttle missions out of Kennedy Space Center. He helped to write the guidelines for training military flight surgeons about how to support space shuttle operations at the transoceanic abort landing sites and at the shuttle landing facility. Dr. Rogers received his solo certificate in helicopters and was able to pilot flights in Huey and Cobra and Kiowa helicopters. And to honor his U.S. Air Force medical service, Dr. Rogers received this U.S. Air Medal created in 1942 during World War II, plus a Humanitarian Service Medal and a Meritorious Service Medal. And now Dr. Rogers has written a book about to be published by UNX and available soon at Amazon.com entitled, "We Got It From Them." The them, he says, are linked to UFO non-human craft that we have been trying to reverse engineer since 1992. Here now is an excerpt from our discussion last week. Dr. Rogers, what is the mystery? What did we human Cro-Magnon Homo sapien get from extraterrestrials on Earth? And what do the extraterrestrial ETs want from our genetically manipulated Homo sapien species on Earth now?
Well, I believe that we have been visited by beings from outer space since the earliest days of humanity. I worked with the Space Shuttle program and helped to launch people into space. And through the course of that, we launched the Hubble Space Telescope, where we could see into the depths of space to see the deepest secrets. We keep coming up with the fact that we are not alone. Because other beings are in the universe, mankind has to figure out, where do we belong?
What is the most remarkable content about UFOs and ETs that you have ever received?
I have been told that UAPs are real, that we have monitored them with assets with which I was familiar, but because of the extreme capabilities that we have, we're not going to tell what we found. Plus, there is institutional bias that we don't want people to say anything. When I saw this spacecraft, I'm going to describe it as, because that's what I believe it was, in 1992, there was no way in 1992 I was going to tell people about it. Because in 1992, you mentioned something like, I just saw a flying saucer, and that could end your career right there. So at the time, that was something that I saw, but not something that I told anybody.
What did you see?
Back in 1992, I was working at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, senior flight surgeon for the rescue recovery team, and also the chief of aerospace medicine. One day, I went to do some investigations on Cape Canaveral Air Force Station proper, and I was escorted by an EG&G escort so that I could go to some of the buildings with security. I went to the final building, and as I was leaving, this gentleman actually stopped and introduced himself to me. He was a major who was one of the space launch officers, and he said he had something to show me. So, not knowing what it was, I went ahead and went with him, and he took me into an office, closed the office, and locked the door. And then he turned on the computer and showed me a closed-circuit television picture of an actual flying saucer that was being tested. Now, when I looked at the flying saucer, it was 20 feet across and pearly white and ovoid, like a modified egg, that was very much in the order of a flying saucer. It had a small dome on the top, and it had 3 umbilicals that were going to it. This thing was able to rise from the floor just as smooth as a feather blown by the wind. And then it circled 360 degrees clockwise. Then it circled 360 degrees counterclockwise. It moved to the left, it moved to the right, it moved forward, and it moved back. It's just as though you were testing the control mechanisms before you start an operational craft. Then what I saw was the 12 o'clock position rose to an angle of 45 degrees, and it remained stationary. I've flown T-38s, F-16s, attack helicopters, and I know what the aerodynamics are of all of these vehicles. None of our vehicles could assume a 45-degree angle of attack and remain stationary. For a helicopter, you can turn the rotor disc to where it attains a 45-degree angle of attack. But as soon as you do that, because you are changing the force vector of the lift from the rotor disc, you're going to move that helicopter in some direction as soon as you alter the rotor disc. And yet this craft was altered to a 45-degree angle of attack and did not move 1 centimeter from where it was located before. And that was something I had never seen and I've never seen since.
Did you say to any colleague in total confidence, how could this be possible?
Yes, I asked the major that was showing this to me, and I said, where on earth did we get this design and technology? And so he used his thumb to point straight up toward space, and he said, we got it from them. He was just flat out telling me we got it from extraterrestrials.
And did you say, what do they look like? Where are they from?
No, I was shocked first to see that I was looking at a flying saucer. I'm looking at it. As it moved, I saw across the front of it at the 12 o'clock position, it said U.S. Air Force. And just above that, it had the U.S. flight insignia. So when I saw this, I was utterly shocked. And then there was a knock on the door, and a lieutenant colonel who outranked both of us majors was at the door, and he was saying, hey, what's going on here? Why is the door locked? So the major immediately turned off the computer screen and looked at me almost in a panic mode and said, don't tell anyone I showed you this. Then he gets up and lets the lieutenant colonel come in. The lieutenant colonel looks at me and says, well, what's going on in here? And so the major said, well, I had a skin lesion and I wanted the doc to check it out because I was afraid it might be cancer. Because it's in a private area, you know, I needed some privacy. So they're looking at me. I'm thinking about all of this. There's no way on earth I can tell this lieutenant colonel, who is a superior officer to me, that this guy just showed me a flying saucer. So I'm thinking about all of this stuff. And so I just decided I'm going to do what everybody else does. I'm not going to say that I saw anything. So I just said, the skin lesion wasn't cancer. I need to go to my clinic. And I booked it out of there, got in my car and drove back to Patrick Air Force Base. And I didn't tell my wife about this for 15 years. Did not tell publicly for 33 years. So only after I retired in April did I release this information in May. And so since May, I've been telling the remarkable event that happened to me in 1992.
When you watched the Grush testimony in the congressional hearing, was there any part of what he was saying that was especially important to you and that you know is true?
I believe that David Grush is telling the truth about what he experienced. But I cannot speak to what he had knowledge of. But what I can do is that I can protect his backside, because he testified that there were people who had seen reverse-engineered craft. Unfortunately, none of the people would come forward with David Grush to reveal that information. But I can say I saw a reverse-engineered craft. And so when I can confirm that what he was saying was true about this, then that adds additional validity to the rest of his testimony.
How much longer do you think that the big lie and deception about the fact that we're not alone in this universe, that there have been all sorts of intelligences interacting with this planet and this solar system for a very long time, how much longer can this big lie go on? And why should it go on? Why shouldn't we all be told now?
Well, to a certain extent, I would say that this big lie is being told by big government, but this is not what we know from history. When we look in the ancient times to India and you look at the Vedic texts, they were talking about Vimanas and weapons of great power that today, if you gave the same description of that weapon, you would say, oh, well, that's a nuclear weapon. Mohenjo-Daro shows evidence that there was vitrification of the stone in a manner similar to what we saw at the Trinity test site and also at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So when we look at the star people, Anasazi, these are things that we have known for thousands of years. If we go back to the Bible has stories. In the 6th chapter of Genesis, it said that the sons of God came down to the daughters of men. Now then, if they were sons of God, by definition, they're extraterrestrial because they were not born of Earth. And so they produced hybrids, and it's recorded in the Bible. So these stories go back thousands of years. But the big government does not want to admit that any of these stories are true, and yet the stories can be heard from cultures all over the globe.
What's wrong with telling the truth?
Most people will tell the truth whenever they feel it's beneficial to them. And so if they feel like we're going to lose power, we're going to lose influence by admitting this kind of stuff, then they're not going to do it.
I first learned in December of 1999 about various extraterrestrial species based on Earth in different underground layers, meaning surface down to the core in different layers. By then, I had worked since 1979 for 20 years on book and TV documentary investigations of bloodless animal mutilations attributed to UFOs and a variety of ETs. And by December of 1999, 2 intelligence analysts organized a confidential meeting with me, one from the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the other from the World Bank. The DIA agent told me that since World War II, the U.S. government had learned that several different extraterrestrial life forms competed with each other on Earth, and the gray extraterrestrials were based deep inside or underground mountain ranges in many parts of the Earth. The DIA said that blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Nordic-looking ETs claim bases in very large caverns deep below the Earth's oceans and seas, meaning you would go down through the water and down through the base of the ocean or the sea, and then you would come into more cavern spaces that the Nordics have designed for themselves. Further, reptilian ETs that like warm temperatures have built bases inside Earth, deep beneath the Mesopotamian desert regions of the Middle East. The DIA analyst also told me that ETs use camouflage technologies to either blend in with humans, like on a city street, or to be completely invisible to the human they may be tracking and all other humans around them. And invisible shapeshifters have come up many times since the Vietnam War. And remember that Hollywood movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger did called Predator, about aliens in the jungles of war popping in and out of visibility to humans there. Well, recently I received a very interesting comment through one of our Earthfiles YouTube channel viewers about her own question of feeling and sensing something like that around her. Quote, I said in recent comments to Earthfiles that there was a woman who worked temporarily in a pharmacy in a town where I lived. It is less than 3 miles from a major military industrial complex, massive aerospace company. And this woman had very wide set eyes, kind of in a purplish hue, light reddish wavy hair, very pale skin, tall and lanky, seemed very disinterested in any form of customer interactions And when I looked directly at her and spoke to her, I got the strangest feeling that I was dealing with a person who was attempting to blend into the society and the people around me at that moment. The late William Mills Tompkins described in his book about what he learned about ETs during World War II, that they were also shape-shifting and there was camouflage. Late William Mills Tompkins describes in his interviews that military industrial complex think tanks, perhaps like EG&G, have these visitors closely involved in their work, which I have also been told that is true. My son's friend worked at this aerospace corporation and swears that there is a set of doors that you will immediately be terminated if you touch them, pass through them, or speak about them. And I shared these last two comments with all of you tonight, hoping that maybe if some of you also have had experiences that resonate along these lines, I'm very interested because of the transitions we are going through on Earth now and may for the foreseeable future. What would extraterrestrial biological entities and their artificial intelligence do? Would they introduce themselves if conditions on Earth may be headed toward getting so rough that maybe some of the non-humans will introduce themselves on their own without waiting for it to happen through human societies and governments? And if any of you do have any experiences like this or know anyone who has, please, if you can, Ian is very good with going through and looking at your messages and comments, and that's wonderful. But also, you can email me directly at earthfiles@earthfiles.com. And if you can include a phone number, I will call you. I never give out contact information, but it sometimes helps to be able to call. And so consider that too. And Ian, I felt like that being able to talk with the doctor on Dr. Rogers about what he experienced, and knowing that I had talked with these analysts in intelligence about there being this shape-shifting invisibility, that we're on a planet that even if we haven't been officially introduced to other species of intelligences, that they have been here perhaps for eons in one way or another and throughout other systems. And feel that at this time on Earth, that it may be important for everybody in our Earthfiles YouTube channel audience to feel comfortable and being able to reach out to me directly through email and phone or into comments and messages. Because right now, 2025 to 2030 is that window of timeline space that people in remote viewing were highlighting even for government investigations back at the end of the 1980s to the 1990s. And so, Ian, I'm transitioning to you, dear colleague in England, for some of your perceptions now on what people are saying and what comments we might take this further, having to do with whether we know it or not, that we are coexisting on and in planet Earth with other intelligences and have been doing so for millions of years, is my understanding. Hi, Ian.
Hi, thanks, Linda. That was great. And it was great to see Dr. Rogers on the program. I remember meeting up with him, with you at Contact in the Desert this year, and he's obviously very enthusiastic about sharing his experience with us. From the chat straight away, Yo Holmes says the doctor has described a U.S. military craft and not an alien craft, although bearing in mind this may be a back-engineered or reverse-engineered craft that we have, and we must take this into consideration. So,
Ian, let me
yeah.
just interject. I know that Dr. Gregory Rogers, that his sense of it is that even though it had the U.S. Air Force stamp on it, like this is us, and that we made it, that he and I both have the same feeling that the government does that on a lot of things that are legitimately extraterrestrial to make the world go away, and that might have been why they put the flag colors and the insignias as if saying this is ours. But Dr. Rogers does not think that this was an American-made craft at all. He thinks it is an example of highly sophisticated, advanced other technology that fits into the extraterrestrial category. And now we're back to the idea that we are coexisting on the Earth, and that whatever the goal is of Greys and reptilians and Nordics and on, the praying mantises, that our government caught on a lot many years ago, and that they have become very skilled at covering up. But Dr. Rogers is, I think, a wonderful example of a person who has experienced a lot, has learned a lot, but he didn't feel either comfortable talking about it until more recently in his life. As he said, he had never told his wife in 15 years of their marriage, and eventually they did. But he's an example of a professional person working inside of a complex where it's very clear if they've got inside TV circuit videos ready to show people how much do they have there. And if it is EG&G, I was told years ago that EG&G was one of the corporations that was working in tandem with some of the projects that were being done either by military or scientists having to do with actual extraterrestrial biological entities and their artificial intelligence. It's a complex world, both on the human side and the non-human side. But I hope that this is clear, that the U.S. piece of flag and U.S. Air Force on the UFO was not being interpreted by Dr. Rogers either as that we made this craft. He, like I, like so many others, we are convinced we have retrieved a lot of extraterrestrial technology, some of which we still don't even know what to do. I know that's for a fact on one particular object. But that this was, I found it refreshing to do an interview with somebody who is from a military background, who wants the truth to be there, that he's convinced that he knows firsthand that extraterrestrial biological entities and their AI are on this planet, in this solar system and beyond. And the United States tries to cover it all up by appropriating as much as it can of being, quote unquote, ours. But the people who actually know what is going on say, no, that technology that could lock into a 45-degree in our particular Earth physics and not move at all, that's extraordinary. Go ahead, Ian. I just wanted to set the stage about that. We're not trying to even imply that that object was anything else but ET.
Well, this is it. This is where it gets very complicated, because it's reasonably a reasonable assumption to take that if we are in possession of crashed craft and perhaps gifted craft or whatever, that we've maybe back engineered them and we can use them, and we have the continued story of the ARVs, the alien reproduction vehicles, that we might be flying them ourselves, or that they may actually be flown. But why they would put insignia on them or not, that sounds very confusing. But it's, in any case, it's great to hear that people report what they see, and this is the thing. This is another level of complexity. But I just wanted to mention as well that you mentioned at the start of the show that we've got the upcoming congressional hearings. Well, we've actually got a date. It's not been officially announced by the UAP task force yet. However, it's been referred to by Stephen Diener, and also I think there was Ryan Sprague came out with it, and I think that Eric Burleson has perhaps confirmed this in some way, of September the 9th. So people should make note of that date. That's the date we have as a working date at the moment. And we're told that at these new congressional hearings, they are going to bring forward, and what's important here is that they're going to be bringing forward first-hand witnesses who have first-hand experiences of UAPs or UAP interactions with our government.
Right.
I've got a quote from Representative Eric Burleson here, who says, "We've got one individual who is a former U.S. Air Force veteran who's going to speak to 5 UAP incidents during his time that he witnessed that and he investigated. Another individual who is a Navy officer who witnessed UAP events firsthand, and another U.S. Air Force officer who's witnessed firsthand events." So he says, we often have people who have already come out publicly, but I think what's better is if we bring forward some new perspectives and people who have not come forward until this moment, fresh witnesses. Apparently, Jeremy Corbell says they've put forward 6 witnesses, of which we think 3 have been chosen so far. So it's interesting to look at these new perspectives.
Yes, and I hope that they will continue to go more complex and deeper, because so far we've had really interesting hearings, but there is so much. It is so deep, it is so wide, and if you take one of those sentences from we'll call it the government meeting with me, December of 1999, and everything that they told me for 7 hours. It was 7 hours. It's one of the most amazing, we'll say, scenes in my life ever, because they were really talking straight. Interestingly enough, whether it had anything to do with it, one of those people was dead a year later, and he was not old, he was younger. And I've always wondered, why was it thought to be necessary to eliminate people over something as profound and certainly belonging to the population of Homo sapien on this planet? Why would it be denied to us to have a confirmation that we're not alone in the universe? And that right now it has a feeling that maybe we're going to step here in the next September, and maybe every month, that we will start incorporating vast amounts of information that are kept underground all over this country and everywhere, of files and thousands of files and photographs and film and documents and illustrations, that all of us humans, I think, deserve to know everything that's there. Maybe, Ian, maybe it will continue. That's what my prayer is. It's not going to go stop and start, that we'll actually now, in this pivotal 2020, 2025, 2030 period, that something will open. And, on this new object that is coming into, and with great controversy, the 3I/ Atlas, that the date there is a documentary that has been done by Bing.com talking about Edgar Cayce back in the 1800s or so, and that Edgar Cayce had written in a book that on October 29th, 9th, 2025. This is all the way back centuries, that there would be a blade of light that would appear in the sky of the earth at a time of great consternation and trouble in the souls and energies of humans. I watched a film about this, and I had never heard of Edgar Cayce talking about something happening on October 29th of 2025 until I saw this film. So that's something to throw out to all of you. See if you can find more information about Edgar Cayce doing what would be a anticipation psychic image of something coming, and that the date would end up being close to when this 3I Atlas is going to come in. It'll stay on the between Mars and Earth. It won't be coming close to Earth. It'll be closer to Mars before it goes out, and it's clocked at 135,000 miles an hour. It's incredible.
Yeah, and the latest update on that is that there's speculation that it's got its own light source on it as well.
I would have brought it up, but
in the last couple of days.
Yeah, I couldn't find anybody who would talk to me about, is there data? Is there any evidence and data that could be discussed or shown that could support that? Because we have different pixelations. There are some photos that were down to 3 pixels and others that are wider. And depending upon the detail in the image, it's hard to tell what are we looking at. If Avi Loeb from the Harvard world has speculated that this might be, from some of the photos, an example of an object that we would put into the comet or meteor category, and it may not be correct, because if it is sustaining increasing light, what would do that?
Well, this is a fascinating story, and I know that you're staying with this story, and you'll keep us updated as we go forward, and I'll try and find more information as well on the reports that I'm getting about it having an independent light source. I think that was the term that was used, which again makes it sound more of an artificial rather than natural piece of space material. So that's important. But also I wanted to mention, you mentioned about people being silenced. Ross Coulthart told Sky News Australia recently that FBI Director Kash Patel is currently investigating allegations that people have been murdered to protect the truth about UFOs. Yeah. So we've had yet another piece of breaking news this week about this, mentioned from the administration, this current administration, that UFOs are still up front and foremost with what's going on. The other thing is, we're talking as well about the alien presence here on Earth. It reminds me of the second episode ever of the X-Files, where Agent Mulder says to Deep Throat, "They're here, aren't they?" And he says, "Agent Mulder, they've been here for a long, long time." Right. And that kind of like reinforces for us. Even this last week, we had Eric Burleson was talking about one of the whistleblowers. He said, told himself and Anna Paulina Luna that there is activity that's happening under the ocean, and indicating again.
And that goes back, it goes back to that 1999 meeting, which is one of the most important in my entire life. It was between Baltimore and Washington. These men showed me ID. I promised and would never, ever, ever violate that we could talk, which we did for 7 hours. And so much of what I was told then in 1999 is true today, or appearing, and that goes and applies to the concept they laid out that Earth had been a laboratory of tremendous amounts of genetic manipulation, some between enemies, some between non-enemies, and they broke down the various types and which ones had warred the most. And we had a big part of our discussion was, you would think that if you get to a point where you can manipulate time and space, which these civilizations allegedly can do, why would there be war? Why would there be murder? Why would there be that sort of conflict going on, which they said did exist in some of the eras that had been here? But the one that I remember the most, because that's what they wanted to stick in my mind, they said, you really need to study wherever we have it. And we have access to the real stuff, Linda, and it's underground. But at least know that 268 million years ago, there were 3 extraterrestrial groups that had been competing with each other, and they began competing with each other on Earth. And they were reptilian, they were Nordics, and they were Greys. And it was out of that landscape that they evolved hundreds of stories of things that they knew. And it is the richness of the history behind our own genetic evolution on this planet that is tied to advanced extraterrestrials being able to mix and match genes on our planet and other planets for reasons not completely known, guessed at. And our government has known this for a long, long time. And right now, as we are getting to a point where we are going to start finally, as I understand it, announcing to the world public that we know that there's artificial light at a specific planet, and that they're trying to take the heat off of TRAPPIST-1 through. But it's my understanding, TRAPPIST-1, when they made the announcement, too hot, no life. That's what they said when they first discovered TRAPPIST, that first planet was too close. That it was E3 in the middle of the solar system that might have artificial light. And why not announce it? What a safe distance, a safe way, and start accustoming Homo sapien that are now here on Earth to being curious and wanting to learn more. And if we became more positive about this whole field and subject and didn't feel like that there was something terrible, then maybe we could get the whole world evolved to a point that they could be introduced physically and it would not be terrible. I keep hearing notes from various people in the Pentagon that they think that humans can't handle the truth, just like that other movie. But we are here, the cosmos is teeming with life and consciousness, and our government knows that. So starting there, going forward, for those of you who may be in the abduction category, that is real. It is not necessarily going to be harmful. We all need to be learning more from each other. And on that scale, dear Ian, I know that you stay in touch with a lot of people in the abduction syndrome. And I'm curious right now of the ones that you and I know together. And at this point, how are the abductees that you know sensing this period, 2025 to 2030? Are any of the abductees that you are communicating with feeling that anything global is going to happen between now and 2030?
Well, I'm in touch with several of the people, and I'm very glad and thankful that people are contacting us at Earthfiles, at earthfiles.com, and Ian at earthfiles.com. for your stories and to follow up with you. That's great. And whenever they can give us any insights into what they feel is coming, that's very important. We do have some people who tell us specifically about specific events that may be cataclysmic events that face the Earth, but also on a very positive note, some people say that they feel that they have some sort of a mission or something needs to be released, and that they feel now is the time. They somehow have this sense that now is the time. And on that note, I think we'll go straight to one of these questions, actually, which comes from our audience, which is regarding the abduction phenomena. AA question says, why are people age group 45 and above not usually abducted, and why? My first thought is obviously about the alien hybridization program, or part of the programs that we've heard of. But there are people who have been abducted over the age of 45 and above and continue to be abducted. But AA's question specifically, why are they not usually abducted?
Well, if the extraterrestrials are always doing genetic hybridization and mixing and matching genes on this planet for reasons that we don't know exactly what they're doing, there is a puberty level that humans have to get up to in order to have birth. So it may be that it is the biological restrictions of human life and birth and death, and then what the extraterrestrials are, they may be involved with genetic manipulation on this Earth because of something that helps them or they need. I thought it was very interesting talking with Whitley Strieber about the hypothesis in his latest book that the animal mutilations, or at least one possible reason for them, is because one of the non-human groups, the Greys, need to harvest a certain kind of copper that if you compared blood in a human to blood in a Holstein cow, that there is a different geometric shape in copper in human blood versus the bovine, and that the non-humans want this bovine kind of copper and they can't get it from humans. Those are the kinds of insights that have come only in the last year. They haven't been there before, and it may be that genetic manipulation has always been one of the big boxes for why there have been ETs here inside of the Earth, underneath the oceans, inside of mountains, and not making themselves a part of humanness when we finally started evolving. I've wondered about that, a kind of compartmentalization through the past in times when the ETs might be here in waves, but our Cro-Magnon Homo sapiens sapien, it goes back to about 45,000 years ago when there was the split off with Neanderthal, and between those two, it was Cro-Magnon Homo sapien that survived, not Neanderthal. And that goes to the bigger question, ET reasons for doing genetic manipulation on Earth could be wildly different and beyond our understanding any of it, compared to us learning about our own genetic evolution and how it got started. Maybe, as the government guy said, 268 million years ago. And we're thinking in terms of timelines that big. That 268 million was where an experiment started genetically by 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations that kept making a variety of life forms. And that's us today. And to me, that's the big picture. And Ian, I'm not sure if in the work that you're doing and the conversations that you keep with some of the abductees, that when it comes down to the different types of non-humans, at least in human life, it does seem that it stays around half a dozen different types, even if there are 1,000 that seem to be the ones focused on Earth and genetic manipulation.
That's right, and the genetic manipulation seems to go through the generations. Often we find this with perhaps 2 or 3 generations of the family. We soon get to that point when we speak to anyone who's been abducted. That seems to be the case, that they suspect sometimes that their parents, or at least on one side, have told them something has happened, and sometimes they can go back to the grandparent as well. And sometimes the grandparent, they say, has had, and in those days they used the word the gift or something to say that they had some sort of psychic abilities, which again is another key factor in all of this.
Didn't you love this headline that was in news today about that when you have an intuitive hunch, it's because a literal part of your psyche, your soul, goes in time traveling into the future and comes back with actual information in maybe 1,000th of a second. It was the first time I ever heard that explanation for that intuitive feeling. I've lived by it my whole life. It's protected me so many times. And that was an explanation. That we jump into the future and come back.
Yeah, the gut feeling, it's fascinating to see that people are looking into the physics and the science behind all of this, and that we may be giving ourselves our own explanations for how this happens, and that we do have these gifts within ourselves, and that we do have our abilities to do them. But let's try and explain them with science, true science. We've got the Our Elizabeth here, and thank you very much, Our Elizabeth, for your super chat this evening, who says, why are they letting some information out but suppressing others? This is on the disclosure question.
They've been doing that going all the way back to 47 as just one of the markers. 47 was when there was the Roswell Daily Record about the crash. It kind of defines a point in the time where after that, talking about UFOs and ETs became something that people could do. And that kept proliferating depending upon which government operations came into which states, for what reason, rumors of our government going deep underground with all kinds of projects. I've heard that from scientists. So right from the very beginning of the alleged first public, worldwide public disc, or it wasn't a disc, it was shaped like this, in the Roswell area, it wasn't happening around the world, and therefore it was controllable. And wouldn't you say, Ian, that through Lieutenant Colonel Corso insights into World War II and what he was learning with Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was a general and became president, and one of his best friends was a PhD chemist, and that Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso told me about fascinating discussions that he had heard every once in a while of these men talking about how would they ever open up a story that they knew had to do with the genetic evolution of Homo sapien life, as if we couldn't handle learning that. And that may be one of the stumbling blocks. But today, in 2025, I don't think that that is a reason not to tell the world population, do you?
No, it seems to be an outdated idea.
Totally quaint.
One that is not compatible, especially not compatible with what's going on now. We have mass communication, immediate notification of everything. We're much more aware of everything that's happening around the planet amongst ourselves. So why shouldn't we also be aware of the alien presence that's also living amongst us?
But there is this recent Reagan briefing at Camp David in '81, meaning it's closer to our time level than going back to World War II and Eisenhower. And in that Ronald Reagan briefing, I've been told it's absolutely accurate what sort of spread out, seeped out over the last 20 years, and I've done a lot of reporting about it. It hasn't been proven to us in documents, but that there was a presentation to Ronald Reagan about 5 different extraterrestrials, and that it included talking about an insect civilization that could be considered to be a threat. Now, even at that level, the tronoloids, it didn't seem to me that that scared Reagan, that he and Nancy Reagan continued to actually talk with people at social events about UFOs and ETs. So the idea that we humans cannot handle the truth was sort of contradicted by that, what I thought was a good briefing with Ronald Reagan, just as an example of a president in which we have had some transcripts. And it's fascinating, but it doesn't terrify. So why can't the world be told? You know what I mean?
Oh, yes, I do. And I think even in the chat this evening, somebody said they didn't think they could handle the image of a 10-foot mantis. Now, it's ironic that people, when they have the experience with a mantis being, a lot of them hear the phrase, "Don't be afraid." That comes through straight away, and a lot of people as well feel the presence of the mantis being, but they are somehow compelled to look forward and not to look back or to the side to see the mantis, because it can be frightening to them. I mean, our perception of the mantis on Earth, the actual insect, I used to keep one as a pet, or several as pets as a child, is a creature that is a predator and that is that can move very, very quickly and and have those eyes that you can stare into and look into for quite a while, but also very ruthless. It can turn around on its mate and kill its mate and eat it after the mating ritual.
Well, that's so here on Earth.
The insect itself can be frightening, yes.
Yeah, but this is completely different. The praying mantis is completely different from the tronoloid, which is a beetle-like structure in brown. But another thing about the praying mantis goes back to that 1999 meeting with the DNI and World Bank guy. They had information about extraterrestrial humanoids in the Andromeda galaxy. We're in the Milky Way galaxy. In the Andromeda galaxy, that they knew they were creating genetic humanoids, and they were being transported from another system in Andromeda into our Milky Way, and was part of the confusion of our government about who was actually in control. And in that 7-hour meeting, one of the sentences I never forgot was, the other galaxy uses a praying mantis structured being because it was made, or the nature or universe made, whoever made it, that they could live 10,000 years of sustained life, and that's why they were used not only in Andromeda but in Milky Way and other galaxies, that the praying mantis is considered to be sort of like a overseer, a manager, because they, if this is true, that they are the longest living entity with consciousness that is evolving. And that is why the praying mantises would be in any different abduction or whatever it was. The praying mantis might be a regular show up, not because it's trying to do anything with us on Earth, but because is working with Andromeda, and the Andromedans are the ones doing something here in the Milky Way galaxy, and they need this long living manager. And I'd be interested, all of you who are listening, if you are an abductee and you have information along these lines, I would really like to hear from you and see your illustrations, because that praying mantis has been showing up in abductees and abduction cases going back all the way to when I started investigating animal mutilations for me. They'd been on before, but there's kind of a modern age for me starting in 1979 up to now. And throughout all of that, the praying mantis type has come up in many, many different facets of abduction stories and even government knowledge.
Well, as you said that, Linda, Raven in the chat says, the mantis I encountered in a very long and inverted commas dream was like a wise old grandma, and we often hear this as well. So we would like to hear more perhaps from you, Raven, and from anyone else who's had any encounters, or let's say these dreams or these very real dreams, which may relate to real encounters with these beings. Linda, I've got to go on to a couple of questions, get them in quick before we finish tonight. First of all, a request from Sexy Sadie. Nice to see you again, Sexy Sadie, in the chat tonight. She says, Linda, would you please show us your galaxy diagram again? That was amazing, especially showing the home planets of other intelligences. Perhaps that's something we can do for another show and look into that.
Would you say that question again, Ian? It sort of broke up here.
Sure. Sexy Sadie references your galaxy diagram, and it was the one that shows the home planets of other intelligences.
My star map. Yes.
Yeah, perhaps we can bring that on for another show. That's a request from her. And Stainless J is in the chat tonight and says, my encounter happened in 1997 with 6 objects that defied physics and maneuvered in a coordinated, playful manner. I haven't seen that again since. Very often people talk about the playful manner of these objects and whether or not that is part of their experience.
Yes, I think that Whitley Strieber was the first person back in 1988, 89, somewhere in there. It was right when Communion first came out. And he said that he thought that they did have, the Greys, that they did have a sense of humor or a sense of being sardonic almost. And that would imply a more sophisticated knowledge of us if they actually would come across a Whitley Strieber with, irony, because that's a different mode, and it may mean that we'll say the praying mantises and the ones that handle humans, they may find us to be fascinating. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to just acknowledge the other super chats this evening. Thank you also to Moonbird and Caroline Boyce, and it's nice to see so many people coming back into the chat again, some people that we haven't seen for a while. And I'm wondering if people can still, if they want to contact us with any questions, you can even send a question in to us at ian@earthfiles.com or earthfiles@earthfiles.com, and we'll try and address your questions, particularly if it's in connection with any of your own personal experiences, etc. But we always provide a safe space.
Well, don't you think it's the summer? When summer and people are on vacations, there's kind of a wax and a waning, and now we're coming back, getting ready for whatever September is going to bring.
That's right. And also, we're watching the events as they happen. It's been a busy week in UFO news, and next month we've got these hearings coming up, and then we've got the Atlas object as well, which is going to be unfolding to us, and who knows what else is to come.
Absolutely. Go ahead with questions, comments, whatever you would like. We'll do one more.
Okay, I'm just looking into the questions at the moment, what we've got at the moment. People are saying it's a fantastic episode. They're really liking the chat that's happening at the moment.
Thank you. And isn't it fascinating that this medical doctor in the military, this wonderful kind of a complex of so many things, Dr. Rogers is now, he wants to be able to communicate with people that he knows this much and he's done that much, and that something is happening now as he is in retirement, that he feels it is important for us to keep getting more and more information from people who really have had first-hand experiences in military or aerospace. And that to me is a very valuable piece. As many of you as who can contact me, please do through Earthfiles at earthfiles.com or Ian. All right, thank you. Go ahead,
Exactly.
Ian.
Okay. Yeah, Linda, I was just going to say, people are mentioning about the mantis. John B. says, the mantis species is truly amazing. I observed one up close and it seemed highly intelligent. Aaron Capricorn said, mantid aliens are super advanced. They can make it look like you are seeing an angel. Many people are also telling us that they feel an overwhelming feeling of, although it may have been terror and fright at first, of overwhelming love and care from their experiences with mantids as well.
And why don't we close out tonight on that on the audience here in the United States and around the world, if there are any of you who have had what you consider to be conscious interactions with praying mantises and or downloads, movies in your mind's eye, and that you have had any insights given to you about this period of 2025 to 2030, I would very much like to hear from you. I think we're in a very special period, finding that Edgar Cayce had written a date of October 29th, 2025, a blade of light would appear in the earth when there was a lot of chaos. Wow. And the more that we can continue to evolve ourselves with more information, maybe the more strength we'll have for ourselves and for our friends and our family, no matter what is coming. Because I always feel it is the thought that dwells in the light that we really need to be connected with these days. And agape hug. Fellow beings everywhere, see you next week.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC and then select Auto Translate. Select a language and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.